What are the main challenges in resolving GitHub issues, according to the paper?
The main challenges in resolving GitHub issues, according to the paper, include the limitations of large language models, LLMs, in processing excessively long context inputs, constraints on input context length, and the need to address software evolution requirements. LLMs struggle with tasks that require advanced code generation capabilities, such as the class eval benchmark. Additionally, the paper highlights the challenge of accurately locating the lines of code that need modification, as evidenced by the low overlap ratio between generated code and reference code changes. The complexity of the code change, reflected in the number of modified files, functions, hunks, and lines added or deleted, poses another significant challenge. Furthermore, the necessity to identify modified files in the absence of an oracle, and the strategic balance required between recall optimization and the number of chosen files, also present challenges in resolving GitHub issues. The paper emphasizes the need for effective planning, coding, and collaboration among different types of agents to overcome these challenges and improve the resolution rate of GitHub issues.
How do large language models, LLMs, excel in code generation tasks according to the paper?
Large language models, LLMs, excel in code generation tasks by demonstrating remarkable capabilities in generating function-level code. They have shown significant potential in addressing emergent bugs, adapting to new requirements, and evolving software applications. LLMs have been particularly successful in tasks that involve generating code changes across entire repositories, such as resolving GitHub issues. Despite facing challenges in tasks requiring advanced code generation capabilities, such as the class eval benchmark, LLMs have shown prowess in generating code changes efficiently. The paper highlights that LLMs, including popular models like GPT-4, have been instrumental in resolving GitHub issues, showcasing their ability to understand and generate code effectively. Additionally, the study reveals that LLMs can handle tasks that involve processing long context inputs, such as entire repositories, by utilizing innovative approaches like LLM-based multi-agent systems. These systems have significantly improved LLMs' efficacy in code generation tasks, enabling them to construct code repositories based on LLM-generated code. Overall, LLMs excel in code generation tasks by leveraging their natural language generation capabilities to understand requirements, generate code changes, and resolve issues efficiently in software development scenarios.
What are the limitations of LLMs in processing long context inputs, according to the paper?
The limitations of LLMs in processing long context inputs, as outlined in the paper, include the challenge of effectively handling excessively long context inputs, particularly in tasks like resolving GitHub issues, where the context comprises the entire repository. This constraint restricts the direct use of the full repository as input to LLMs. The paper also highlights that LLMs, such as GPT-4, exhibit limitations in accurately locating the lines of code that need modification, as evidenced by their low overlap ratio with the reference code change in terms of line location. This inability to accurately pinpoint the lines needing modification hinders the LLM's effectiveness in generating code changes. Additionally, the complexity of the code change, reflected in various indices like the number of modified files, functions, hunks, and lines added or deleted, poses a challenge for LLMs in processing and generating appropriate code changes. The study reveals that as the complexity of the code change increases, the likelihood of issue resolution decreases, indicating a limitation in the LLM's ability to handle complex code modifications effectively.
What is the motivation behind designing the LLM-based multi-agent system MAGIS, according to the paper?
The motivation behind designing the LLM-based multi-agent system MAGIS, according to the paper, is to address the limitations of existing large language models, LLMs, in resolving GitHub issues, especially in tasks that require advanced code generation capabilities. The paper highlights that LLMs, despite their success in generating function-level code, struggle with tasks like resolving GitHub issues due to constraints in processing long context inputs and accurately locating code lines. The goal of MAGIS is to harness the full potential of LLMs by creating a collaborative framework involving 4 types of agents: manager, repository custodian, developer, and quality assurance (QA engineer). Each agent plays a unique role in planning, locating relevant files, generating code changes, and ensuring code quality. By leveraging the strengths of each agent and facilitating collaboration among them, MAGIS aims to improve the effectiveness of LLMs in resolving GitHub issues. The paper demonstrates that MAGIS significantly outperforms popular LLMs like GPT-4, achieving an 8-fold performance gain and showcasing the potential of multi-agent systems in enhancing LLM capabilities for repository-level coding tasks.
How does the proposed MAGIS framework improve upon existing LLMs in resolving GitHub issues, according to the paper?
The proposed MAGIS framework improves upon existing LLMs in resolving GitHub issues by introducing a novel LLM-based multi-agent system that leverages collaboration among different types of agents, namely manager, repository custodian, developer, and quality assurance (QA engineer). This framework enhances the effectiveness of LLMs by addressing the limitations in processing long context inputs and accurately locating code lines that need modification. The manager role enhances team flexibility and adaptability, enabling efficient issue resolution. The repository custodian efficiently locates relevant files in the repository, optimizing the recall score. The developer role excels in generating code changes with a high line location overlap ratio, indicating accurate modification locations. The QA engineer ensures code quality and provides timely feedback, improving the resolution rate. The collaborative process among these agents streamlines planning, coding, and review, leading to a significant increase in the resolved ratio, outperforming popular LLMs like GPT-4 and CLAUDE-2. Additionally, the framework's adaptability in generating complex code changes and its ability to resolve issues efficiently within a short time frame further highlight its effectiveness in GitHub issue resolution.
What factors impact the performance of LLMs under the with Oracle setting, according to the paper?
The factors that impact the performance of large language models, LLMs, under the with Oracle setting, as outlined in the paper, are the line location and the complexity of the code change. The line location refers to the accuracy of identifying the specific lines of code that need modification within the code file. The paper quantitatively analyzes the accuracy of line localization by comparing the overlap ratio of the generated code change with the reference code change. The results show that LLMs struggle to accurately locate the lines of code that require modification, affecting their performance in resolving GitHub issues. Additionally, the complexity of the code change, reflected in various indices such as the number of modified files, functions, hunks, and lines added or deleted, also impacts the LLM's performance. The analysis reveals that an increase in the complexity of the code change, especially in terms of the number of files and functions modified, hinders the issue resolution. The paper demonstrates that these two factors significantly influence the effectiveness of LLMs in resolving GitHub issues under the with Oracle setting.
How is the accuracy of line localization quantitatively analyzed in the paper?
The accuracy of line localization is quantitatively analyzed in the paper by calculating the overlap ratio of the line number ranges between the generated code change and the reference code change. The overlap ratio is calculated by comparing the line number ranges of the generated code change with the reference code change. Specifically, for each instance, the line number ranges of the code change in the reference are represented as a set of intervals, while the line number range set of the generated code change is also represented as a set of intervals. The overlap ratio is calculated by measuring the size of the intersection between the intervals of the generated code change and the reference code change. This analysis helps estimate the accuracy of line localization in the generation process. The paper presents a detailed formula for calculating the overlap ratio and provides a visual representation of the distribution of the overlap ratio for different large language models, LLMs, in the study. The analysis reveals that a higher overlap ratio indicates a better ability to accurately locate the lines of code that need to be modified, which is crucial for resolving GitHub issues effectively.
What is the significance of the overlap ratio in relation to resolving GitHub issues, according to the paper?
The significance of the overlap ratio in relation to resolving GitHub issues, as discussed in the paper, lies in its correlation with the effectiveness of large language models, LLMs, in generating code changes. The overlap ratio measures the accuracy of line localization in the code change generation process. A high overlap ratio indicates that the content generated by LLMs closely matches the reference code in terms of line location, suggesting accurate identification of the lines of code that need modification. The paper reveals that a higher overlap ratio, closer to 1, is associated with a higher probability of successfully resolving GitHub issues. This implies that accurate line localization, as indicated by a high overlap ratio, is crucial for the successful resolution of issues. Additionally, the correlation analysis shows that improvements in the overlap ratio positively impact the probability of resolving issues, particularly highlighted by the positive correlation coefficient observed in the study. Therefore, the overlap ratio serves as a key metric for assessing the effectiveness of LLMs in resolving GitHub issues, emphasizing the importance of precise line localization in generating code changes for issue resolution.
How does the proposed MAGIS framework handle the planning and coding processes according to the paper?
The proposed MAGIS framework handles the planning process by first employing the repository custodian to rank files in the repository based on the GitHub issue description using the BM25 algorithm. The top K relevant files are selected as potential candidates for coding. To enhance efficiency, the custodian filters out irrelevant files based on relevance scores obtained from LLM compressions and code change summaries. The manager then decomposes the GitHub issue into detailed file-level tasks and designs developer roles accordingly, forming the development team. The manager organizes a kickoff meeting to confirm task assignments and dependencies. During coding, developers work on their assigned tasks by determining the lines of code to modify, generating new code snippets and producing code changes using Git tools. The QA engineer reviews the code changes and provides feedback for revisions until quality standards are met or a set iteration limit is reached. The final code changes are merged into the repository-level code change as the issue solution. In the coding process, developers and QA engineers collaborate to execute tasks. Developers determine the lines of code to modify, generate new code snippets, and produce code changes. QA engineers review the code changes and provide feedback for revisions. The iterative process continues until the code change meets quality standards or reaches a predefined maximum number of iterations. The final code changes are merged into the repository-level code change as the issue solution. The framework's effectiveness is demonstrated by significantly outperforming other LLMs, with a resolved ratio of 13.94%, 8 times higher than GPT-4. The framework's adaptability is showcased by generating code changes involving multiple files, hunks, and lines, with successful resolutions even in complex scenarios. The QA engineer's role is crucial in maintaining software quality, as evidenced by the ablation study results and a case study from the repository scikit-learn.
What metrics are used to evaluate the performance of the MAGIS framework in resolving GitHub issues according to the paper?
The metrics used to evaluate the performance of the MAGIS framework in resolving GitHub issues according to the paper are the applied ratio and the resolved ratio. The applied ratio indicates the proportion of instances where the code change is successfully generated and can be applied to the existing code repository using Git tools. On the other hand, the resolved ratio refers to the proportion of instances in which the code change is successfully applied and passes a series of tests. These metrics are crucial in assessing the effectiveness of the MAGIS framework in resolving GitHub issues, showcasing its ability to generate applicable code changes and successfully resolve issues within the code repository.